cataract, unconsciousness, that many words could fade.
Hello, it's me, John McInnes. I'm followed here by John Gallagher and Mark Long, and we are doing a chat about improv. This is BLC's weekly chat about improv show. John, do you want to talk a little bit more about what BLC is?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Bristol Longform Comedy, BLC. We are the Longform community in Bristol, England. We do courses and shows and classes. Obviously not now, so that's why we're doing this this video. But in the past, it's mainly just been myself and McInnes talking about our love of long-form improv comedy. And we also last week had a lovely guest, Ben McPherson, who spoke about his journey through improv. And we thought, screw it, we might as well do another one, this time with another guest, a local guest this time. This is Mark Long. Hello, Mark.
Hello, John. Hello, other John.
Which one in your mind is other John, Mark?
I mean, I hate to say it, other John, but...
It is me, yeah. Because you were responding to John Gallagher, so I must have been other John.
That was the way it worked.
I'm not happy about it, but I will accept it. I'll accept it because I like yes-anding things.
That's a goddamn lie, and you know it.
Okay, you're right. It's a lie. Look at me accepting it.
God damn it. Mark is part of the Bristol Longform Comedy group. You teach. You also are in some very, very good teams in Bristol. We just thought we'd have a conversation with you, Mark. Tell us your improv journey. Tell us your dreams, your aspirations, and tell us what you enjoy about long-form improv. All in that order.
Let's start with dreams. I'm
Yes.
very interested in what your improv dream is, Mark.
Now let's start at the beginning. It was a rainy Tuesday. Clouds were in the sky.
Set the scene. What year was it? What?
So I was saying to you off camera, I've been doing improv long enough now that like I can't instantly remember. I think it was 2016. So my background was I'd done basically no kind of like comedy, performing, theatre of kind of any kind, and hadn't really expressed any particular interest in it, I guess, up to then. Like mainly like hobbies were like playing sport and stuff. And I was like injured for about a year, and I was looking for something like really random to do. And in Bristol, there's a place called the Folk Centre. They have lots of like evening classes and that kind of thing. And there was a guy doing like I think it was a drama and improv course. So it was a 10-week course there, which I did, really liked, and then kind of found my way to the improv theatre in Bristol. The bit. Did probably like 6 months of like, I guess their courses, then started doing kind of the long form Tuesday workshops with what was Kitchen Rules Theatre. Did a few kind of narrative type shows at the bit over the years, and then I've mainly been doing kind of long form the last couple of years.
Awesome. That's pretty in-depth stuff. All right, cool. That's pretty good
That's
stuff.
the improv story.
Now we come to your dreams. What are your dreams?
Yes.
I actually don't ever remember my dreams. I'm always very jealous of people that can remember dreams.
That's intriguing.
What teams are you in, Mark? I know that you're in a couple at the moment.
I'm in waiting for Becky's for like my main team, which was obviously formed as one of the house teams with Kitchen Rules Theatre, and I guess how long have we been going now? I guess like a year and a half probably. What other teams am I in? Me and John McInnes have a 2-prov which we sometimes do called Solicitors. They're like the only two I do regularly. I'm trying to remember what my other teams are called.
So you went from like narrative. You were saying before that you were in a narrative. You've done narrative shows, so you're in narrative teams. First,
So yeah, I did the unscripted players shows at the bit. So I did 2 of those, which I enjoyed. I've not done much narrative. I did go back around Christmas. I was doing joined a narrative team, which Real Positive Polls had put together. Which enjoyed dipping my toe in the water. But yeah, I've always been more of a long former.
What was that transition like from like going from a narrative team storytelling into American style long form? Because that's a huge leap. Like previously, McInnes and I were talking in previous live streams about that, using narrative in long form and vice versa. What was it like for you?
It's not an uncommon kind of route, particularly within Bristol, for people to start out doing like courses at the back and then doing like unscripted player shows, and then doing like more long form shows. What's that transition like? Because I mean, me and Gallagher did do an unscripted player show kind of before there was a long form scene, but I don't think we really went through that like as a transitionary thing, because we were kind of helping setting up what that was. So I don't have experience of like. It feels like there's definitely like 2 very different kind of communities. Or like, the feedback I've always heard is that it's kind of, long form can be intimidating from the outside. Is that your experience? What's your experience of like that transition?
I remember my very first time I went to like the one of the drop-in classes. And it was like the first 5 minutes was like the most intense game of Zip Zop Zap I'd like ever seen. I was like, I can't even zip zap zop at these people's level. I imagine it was. I think from recollection it was McInnes kind of like going faster.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think as soon as I started doing the long form drop-ins, I felt immediately drawn to it. I think it took a long time for me to, I don't know if get it's the right word, but I think I'm quite a. It took me a long time to get kind of more involved in kind of scenes. I think I was quite a heady player when I first started. So I think I like the first year or so almost, I was quite hesitant. Like I'd be on the back line a lot, kind of like overthinking stuff, which I kind of. I'm not entirely sure what got me over that. But it take me a while kind of going through that phase.
It's a very common thing for a lot of... I mean, a classic way of dividing people is into like thinky analytical players or like emotional actor players. It's not uncommon that a lot of people start out just enjoying improv and then like fall into like either overthinking or over like emoting. It's not an uncommon journey, I think. And then just like at some point, for whatever reason, they're like, "Oh, I'm not thinking as much."
That's interesting because it changes with a lot of people. Usually, people get it quite. You're right. There is definitely that transition of moving from backline to being a little bit nervous to then finally getting it. But it doesn't take like a session, does it? It takes. I'd say like 4, maybe like 4 plus.
We've talked quite a lot, Mark, about like your background. Like you're primarily like a sports guy before doing much like improv. Like I assume that is like a related thing. You know, like we've talked about that before. Like the idea of that it might be transferable, like working a team and like getting reps in.
Yeah, it's like as with anything, like doing your 10,000 hours or whatever. It's kind of. But yeah, I think a lot of people are always looking for that kind of like magic piece of advice that kind of just gets you to like jump up several, I guess, levels as such. I don't think for me there was ever anything. I'm not sure if some things like potentially click, but like I can just remember like at a certain point looking around and thinking, oh yeah, I'm doing that much more than I was before.
What's one of your first scenes you did where you were like, oh, I am in control a little bit in a way that I wasn't before? I always think that's like it doesn't even need to be the first one, but what's like an early one you remember? Because I think that's like a moment where when you start out doing improv, you're just kind of trying to do anything, you're just saying anything that comes to mind, and then you overthink things and you are like less in the scene but you're thinking more. Was there a point after that where you did a scene where you're like, oh, I kind of knew what I was doing in that scene?
Yeah, I can remember anyone that really comes to mind. Like, I remember one drop in, I felt like I was just, everything was going right, and I remember one scene was happening out, I think I tagged into it. It was something along the lines of like a waiter was was being overly like aggressive without the person actually realising that's what they were doing, and it was just like a quick tag in and kind of voice of reason of, you can't talk to people like that. But yeah, I think it was just something quick like that, and I was like, oh yeah, it's just like I didn't even need to think that, it just almost happened instantly. It's the thought and doing it.
What was your first experience performing long form in front of an audience? When was that? Was that in a team, or did you do like a jam?
Gallagher, are you including unscripted players, or do you mean like outside of that?
I'm thinking just long form. So like you've joined the Tuesday long form workshops, and then after that, what was your first long form show?
I think I know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, John should probably know.
I think we both know.
I joined a team called Becky's Got Food on Her Face, which was coached by you.
Gallagher's just setting up a big long walk to like, oh, me?
Me?
But yeah, so initially, we had kind of like three of us that were initially in the team, me, Max and Jeffro, who'd all kind of had like a similar level of experience. None of us had been in a team before. So it was all kind of just an idea of kind of essentially trying out a team and being able to perform. Then later we had Alexios, who obviously had a lot of experience, and you got involved in performing as well. So it would have been performing at the shit show we used to do at that point. I can remember. I've never been someone who's got particularly nervous performing or worried about performing, but I can certainly remember the shows early on, just being on stage and the stage just feeling very empty and like not having an idea, and at that point being, shit, I've got nothing, and the stage is empty, no one's walking forward, shit, what do I do? Whereas I think you get to a certain point where, not that you don't care, but just you're relaxed. If you need to, I know I can, at any point, I can walk into an empty stage and probably come up with a half decent scene. And I think once you've got that fear of kind of walking out onto an empty stage with nothing, once that goes, I think everything becomes a lot easier.
Yeah.
Certainly for like analytical type players, you know, like maybe that's kind of like a thing that's important for like thinky kind of robot players, like a big thing in their heads. So I mean, as we all know, me and Gallagher's 2prov, Billy Boys, is all about Gallagher being a pirate and me being a robot. And that we've obviously talked a lot about this. So I don't think you're like an insane pirate, Gallagher. I don't think even I'm an insane robot at this point. But that's definitely where I came from originally. And I think it kind of like a part of the reason a lot of robot type players don't want to step out is because like they need the whole scene in their heads before they even start. But a process of like getting rid of that is knowing that, oh, you don't have to have that to start with. You just have to have like anything that makes sense. A man walking into an iPhone shop. That's enough for a good scene to happen at some point. Even if that's like not much.
Yeah, I think tags in particular, I struggled with for a while, and it can like it's just, again, it's the overthinking of it. Like, just put that, whoever the weird character is, put them in some situation where it would be amusing to see them. Like, you don't need that much more than that at points.
Have you got any? Do you think you have any go-to moves? I have go-to moves. I know I can say them. I can list them off. But what do you think your own go-to moves are, Mark? And remember, this is an interrogation, so we're going to find out the truth.
I think one of my not sure it's necessarily a mistake, but one of my like go-to is ending up, particularly when we're doing our two prov, is playing someone who doesn't know anything. I think I'm quite good at playing kind of dumb characters, not necessarily like dumb, but just like playing that like kind of slightly innocent kind of way of it, which I do. Not, I don't think I ever intentionally do it, but I do probably overuse in terms of just like, I don't know how to write.
There's definitely a part of my thing, which is I say too much. I think I say too much is like, you have to know this.
What was honestly the only reason I ask is because I can't remember at all. My memory is so shitty. But what do you think? The community back when you started doing shows, that sort of where Kitchen Rules was the long form company. Do you think like Bristol has changed in terms of long form? Do you think it's getting bigger, or do you think there's less teams around, or what do you think?
Outside of the context of COVID-19.
Oh yes, before all of this happened.
Before the incident.
Yes.
Answer this question as if you were answering it on January the 1st, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, you've just made your resolutions for the year, and now you're being asked, what's the scene like now in comparison to when you started?
Yeah.
I think there's probably less. There's definitely less teams, because there was a point with Kitchen Rules where there was quite a lot of teams. Like, you guys were kind of actively pushing for a lot of teams to be made and performing at shit show. So there's not that automatic generation of teams that there was. I think there's a lot of. I think there's really more shows to perform at.
I think that's true.
Like since Waiting for Becky came out of being the house team, like we were performing probably once or twice a month, like for the last year. And I'll be honest, we've put no effort into making our own show. Like we've done it off the back of people like you guys that put shows on, and we've been able to pretty kind of steadily perform. So I think there's definitely a decent number of performing opportunities.
Yeah. Maybe it's just the maybe it just feels a little bit different in terms of like that mid step between like, you know, like the shit show isn't around. There is Hodgeprov, but like there's less enthusiasm from the community to do stuff at Hodgeprov, you know. So maybe that's
definitely
kind of not around. I don't know.
Definitely has something to do with the drop-ins. When those Tuesday drop-ins were about everybody, I was like, so many people were going to those.
Yeah.
There just needs to be like a constant thing for like a constant day, at least once a week, for something to sort of continue and move onwards.
Well, I think it's because you had that kind of inbuilt community, and you were seeing people at the Tuesday and saying, "Come to the show in 2 days' time," and it's just having that push, which I guess there isn't now. And
I also kind of think a part of it is like, you know, from that kind of era, a lot of people learned a lot, but there isn't like a massive like funnel for new people coming into the community. Like there is, but like not as big as like when that started, when everybody was kind of like starting near the same level and doing a bunch of like workshops or classes or whatever. Now everybody's kind of taken a lot of workshops, a lot of drop-ins, and like done a bunch of shit shows. I'm not saying there's nobody new in the scene, but by default there has to be less new people than there was at that time, because literally there was no long form kind of before that. Okay, there was a little bit, but there wasn't like a community regularly doing it.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, when I first started, I remember feeling there wasn't that gap that could be bridged. That it just felt there was that high level and there was nothing in the middle to get to. Kind of, you were coming out of the bits classes, and it was like, oh, what do I need to do next? I think over the time that kind of like things like the shit show and you guys encouraging teams to get game form, that kind of bridged that gap, and maybe it's kind of back closer to where it was a few years ago.
Well, let's talk about your team then. Tell us about Waiting for Becky. What do you think your role is in that team? You guys were like a house team. I mean, I know a lot of that. You guys were a house team. You did Armando's for like 6 months, and now you do like mono scenes generally.
Yeah, so we chose like a mono scene as our like final kind of show as the house team, and then we stuck with that for probably about 6 months or so, or I guess maybe a year, and then the last few months before lockdown we'd then gone back to Armando's again. I quite like it, as we kind of, our aim I think at the moment is to be doing one or the other.
Yeah. I
quite like it for like a 40-minute show. I feel they go quite well together. I quite like doing it as the Armando into a mono scene. So yeah, I kind of mono scene is probably my favourite format of anything.
What do you like about it? What do you think your role is in that kind of show within your team, and why do you like that form so much?
I've
been on the record on this chat thing of saying I think it's the hardest form to consistently do well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to brag, go ahead and tell us how to do it.
Or prove him wrong, Mark. Prove him wrong.
I mean, guys, it's so easy. I think often my role in a mono scene tends to be ending up being the one to kind of change the energy. I got some people in the team are very good at kind of initiating kind of the first scene in the mono scene, which I can occasionally do, but I tend not to. So I think often like a scene will get set up, maybe the first character or first two characters kind of come in of kind of very similar, like, you know, some family member, some other person who should be there. I tend to be the first one to come in as someone kind of like who's vastly different or kind of just changes the energy quite well.
Yeah.
I find that quite fun, just coming up with more of an unusual person that comes into the scene.
It's a fun role. I think that's the kind of thing it's kind of role I enjoy doing in a mono scene, because it feels almost taggy a little bit. It's not, but like it does feel like you're doing a job of making sure the whole show isn't just about this linear story thing. You're like just reminding everybody, oh, the rest of the world might not care about these characters. I like that role a lot.
Well, what was it like when you were practicing the mono scene for the very first time, Mark? What was it like for as a team to come together? Was it hard? Was it hard to get into the stride of it?
Yeah, I think we originally started doing it when, in our first 6 months as a house team, we started working on it. I think because as a team, initially we had a bit of a weakness doing Armando's to not really sit in scenes long enough. Everyone was a bit kind of trigger happy with tags. So I think it was just a way initially to like sit in a scene. So it was more as almost a training wheels kind of exercise. I think it just ended up sticking, and then kind of carried on afterwards. But yeah, I think initially I can remember some people finding it struggle kind of like I think understanding when like the edit points are, kind of just the balance of having different, whether how many people to have on it at any one time.
What's your thoughts on trying to do like the Herald structure in a mono scene? Because like it's very rigid and weird a little bit, especially if the edit points are like very forced. Like that's a version of a mono scene that's good for like training, but it is not necessarily a great like mono scene. What's your thoughts on that? I know you guys worked on that early on.
Yeah, so
I forced you guys to do French Heralds, knowing full well that they weren't great and they were hearts?
Yeah, I'll be honest, we could have like actively made a decision not to do French Heralds after
Yeah.
I think it was possibly there was just when you've got so many possible mono-scene formats you can do, I think it was easier just to get rid of one of them and just have it's a lot easier to step forward, everyone's more on the same page. So I think it just helped us getting rid of that kind of one we were less confident with, and just knowing there's only a couple of options then. Like, it could still be genre or other kind of versions of mono-scene, but yeah, I think we found it easier just to stop doing the French.
But you've got like experience with the Heralds. You were in Zeno and, right?
I was. Yeah, I do kind of miss doing the Herald a little bit. I'm like, it's a classic thing with the Herald. It is like best probably all round, just in terms of getting you thinking all improv. I think that's why I'm slightly glad we're actually with waiting for Becky. Whilst we've switching back to doing Armando the last few months before lockdown, just getting used to like tagging and stuff again. Which since I stopped doing Heralds with Xenu, I kind of not been doing. Yeah, I can remember really disliking Heralds when I first started doing it. Again, when like I was struggling kind of all the back line without ideas, and it's finally like the pressure to come up with premises. Yeah, and I particularly liked like McInnes. I know you were never like a massive fan of it, but I always really liked Xenu Ann's opening for the Herald.
It's fine.
I think I may be too self-conscious in that, like, and one of the reasons I quite like mono scenes in general is that it's quite audience friendly. Kind of a non-improv audience can see a mono scene and kind of get it straight away. So I think I'm always kind of like doing a kind of sound of movement like with a Herald. I'm always very self-aware doing it. So I did like Xenu's version of that.
Yeah, it's a very accessible version of something that looks kind of sound and movement. Yeah, I agree. It's very character focused.
Talking about Heralds, you taught the Herald with BLC, Mark. How was that? How was it going from? Because the way I've seen your progression is going through the drop-ins at starting out, and then moving into long form, and then there was just this huge shift in that you became one of the best, funniest performers to watch on stage, and then you moved into teaching it now. Well, how was it going from this great performer into finally teaching the Herald, something that you didn't like at the beginning?
I think I kind of just took it kind of step by step in that I just enjoy analysing a scene and kind of thinking what I'd have done if that made me laugh. To be honest, before I did start doing the coaching, I wasn't sure how much I'd enjoy it, but just kind of watching a scene and kind of finding what would make it better, what would make you laugh, kind of just as simple as that.
Yeah.
What's no, you go.
No, go for it, McInnes.
What's anything you think about improv that is like you strongly believe, especially if it's like you think it's controversial? I mean, like, in terms of like doing it. Actually, it could be like teaching it or whatever, but like, what's something you would like if you had to put your money on believing something in improv and how to do it? I mean, I'll give you an example. One thing I would strongly put out is like being the unusual character helps. I mean, I'm not saying that's not even a controversial opinion, I don't think, but it's something that I would like point to as like a thing that if I had to say do this and it's like I bet I win money whether that's the correct rule or not, then that's something I put my money on. What's something like that for you?
I mean, it's not anything anyone's not heard before, but I think for me, just if I'm ever struggling in a scene, it's the classic kind of, what do I feel about this? What do I feel about the person opposite me?
Mm.
What do I care about them? Why do I care about them? I mean, it's always just reaching to what the emotion is and why you have that, I guess, for me.
That's a good one, actually. Because we do sometimes with voices of reason, usually they don't feel anything to the point where they are so robotic that there's nothing you can get from them. Even when they're playing a real person, you're not giving anything if you don't care about what it is that's happening. That's a good point.
Sometimes people can fall into like an archetype of what they think a voice of reason needs to be, like being like, you can't do that, but there's a lot of like base realities where that isn't what that person would act like. Like, you can be a voice of reason by just paying attention to something that's weird, rather than being like, ew, don't do that, or that's weird.
Yeah, I think the being like I guess an empathetic kind of voice of reason, that you're really trying to you're trying to understand the unusual character. You're really like doing everything you can to like help them and kind of get on their wavelength. And when you've got that, I guess, a nice voice of reason that's trying to do that, it can always work really well.
Out of your point, McInnes, are you saying that something that you'll definitely gamble on is the idea of somebody being the unusual person is good? Just thinking about it, my one would probably be the one thing that has really changed is be the voice of reason. I'd be the opposite. I'd say that has really...
Initiate as the voice of reason?
No, I wouldn't initiate them, but I'll definitely... That needs to happen. There needs to be some reality.
I agree, there should be one, yeah.
There needs to be a person who's part of the reality. And, like, you know, peas in the pod scenes, you can be both weird, that's absolutely fine, but I've found more often than not, being a voice of reason in a scene does help. It helps way more.
Well, again, this is why the Billy Boys are a perfect combination of you being a voice of reason and me being a weird character in every scene.
Didn't you say that I was the pirate and you were the robot?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh.
I'm an unusual robot and you're a perfectly nice pirate.
Oh dear, this is why we don't get any gigs. This is why people don't want us at shows.
Yeah, it's fair, I get it.
So do I, to be fair, so do I.
Actually, I guess on that topic, like, me and you, Mark, we've worked our 2-prov, a large amount of our 2-prov working together was like trying to figure out like what our form should be.
Yeah.
Do you have any opinions on what that process was?
I mean, it was us spending vast amounts of time over analysing what our form was. For a long time, we were working on this thing where we were trying to put a mono scene around an event. We spent God knows how long trying to like define what an event was.
Yes, which we have agreed is impossible to do. You cannot define what an event is.
We did one perfect like mono scene, which was it was involving
storm one, the avalanche one.
The avalanche one, and we then compared every other event to the avalanche disaster.
I tried to force every possible set into becoming kind of structurally that. For some reason, that didn't work.
Yeah, has been.
What's your opinion on like that process of like? Do you think it's a good idea to like spend time coming up with a form? We wasted our time.
I think like it's good to have something that like you're about. Like when we first started doing our 2-prov, like the initial thing I think I pitched to you was doing like trying to start in the middle of
yes.
Yeah, that's a really good note.
Like I'll be honest, the extent to which we keep that is possibly not that great. But I think it's just
all of the best scenes that we do do follow that note. That's why I'm still so interested in like working as that as a thing. But you're right. Like one scene into it, we are no longer doing that.
But yeah, I think it's just particularly when you're like setting up a group or anything initially, just having something you can. It may be that you change it and do something else, but I think just having that initial reason to do it's just kind of good and just makes things easier initially. Like the extent to which like you need to analyze that form in its detail, it's gonna like all of us like love talking about improv and in depth. Hence us having this chat now. Like it's whatever works for you. That some people are going to find it much easier just to jump on stage and do something.
When did that happen for you? From someone who's just enjoying improv, who's just doing it because they enjoy it physically, or going to analyzing improv scenes. Where did you have that transition, and how did it sort of happen? Because I know from watching shows with you, Mark, that you do analyze a lot of stuff.
I'm also much that now. I'm a horrendous audience member because I very rarely laugh and will actively cringe at anything that's not like hilarious.
Yeah. I love it. I love sitting next to you.
I like it's not intentional, but yeah, I'm not a good audience member. I to be honest, I feel like from the get go, just like I wanted to be good. Like, there's a lot of reasons to get into improv, and and it's nothing against any of those, but kind of I actively from as soon as I started doing it wanted to be funny and wanted to be good. So it quickly, I guess, became a hobby I kind of took seriously. It's still a hobby, but it's one kind of I always wanted to push myself to kind of be as good as I could be doing it.
Yeah.
That's a mindset that appeals to me. Like, taking your hobby seriously. Like, just because it's a hobby doesn't mean you can't have fun working on it. Like, it feels like a very sports-ish type thing, you know?
Yeah, I think it is like something a lot of improvisers probably struggle at times to find the right balance. I'm sure we've all been in groups and had things where we've ended up kind of doing too much work to kind of make something happen and kind of taking the fun out of the actual improv of it.
It's never happened to me.
But yeah, so it's like I always want to kind of, if that's happening, I always want to catch myself and like remember that there's something that should actually be fun and enjoyable. But at the same time as well, kind of like I want to do a good show. I want it to be the best it can be. I want audiences to enjoy it. Kind of, so kind of I do take it seriously from that regards and want to push for it to be as good as it can be.
Yeah.
So what's, I think this leads into this question then. What's something that will happen in a show then that will make you mad? And you'll try and not show it, and you don't want to show it. And if we all want to be like, oh no, I would never be mad or judge a move ever. But I don't think that's true for most people. I think people in their head instinctually, even if they don't want to, are like, damn it, I'm not happy this is happening. What's something that would make you think that?
Are you talking about yourself or someone else?
Both. Answer both. I'll answer both after you.
I can. I have no overriding member of one rehearsal with a particular group of coming in with such a good premise. It was so good, and someone else like on the back line could have disregarding that and coming in as like a waiter who the scene then became about. And I remember being so internally gutted that my what I considered to be my great premise wasn't used. Myself, I think probably I think edit points are often the an issue. Like, I think for Waiting for Becky, that's something we've maybe been weak on, is not ending shows on the best moment, of leaving it too long. So definitely had moments where kind of the biggest laughs gone, and I've kind of thought there's something else coming, and then it hasn't, and I've just been like, I should have done it then. Yeah, maybe edits in general.
Good answers. I like them both.
What about you, McInnes? What was something that you... Go on, you wanted...
I don't have anything prepared. It's like I kind of set that up like I was going to prepare something, but I really didn't think about it. I mean, those two things ring true to me. Even though nowadays, now I'm very comfortable with like having my premise ruined. But early on, I was like, motherfucker, I had this premise and it was perfect. And now we've lost it. What angers me now? I tell you what, something that even if I'm in the show or watching or anything, I hate is when a team doesn't use the mistake. Like I've seen this with like very new teams quite a lot, which is like, for instance, somebody edits and then somebody misses it and like they continue the scene and then they like edit again and then they don't repeat that or don't try and make it look good. Even now I'm like, when I see that, or if I'm in a scene or a show with a team that doesn't happen, I'm a little bit mad. I'm like, that person now looks dumb when we could have made them look pretty good. Something I do, but there's nothing I've ever done that makes me feel bad in an improv scene, so it's hard to relate to that question. I guess if I had to put myself in the mind of somebody like that, it would be not committing. I've been talking to you guys about that recently. Like, sometimes I have a little bit too fun nowadays, and I'm not committing hard enough. I really hate that. When I could have been a normal person, but for whatever reason I wanted to be James Bond. For whatever reason. It seems funny and joyous to me, but I know the scene could have been funnier if I was normal.
Yeah, I think I've had a similar, that any show where I've considered it not to have gone well, more often than not, that's the note I've ended up giving myself. I think as well with kind of the not committing, it's like the James Bond thing, like also half the time it's kind of, I should have doubled down on it, like,
yeah,
it didn't work initially, but I should have just committed more to it and done it twice as much and twice as loud.
Yeah, that James Bond example wasn't perfect for me because, like, actually that was a fine James Bond I was doing. A bad version of that I would hate would be if I was like, it's me, James Bond, like, not committing and thinking that's going to be the comedy. That I'll do occasionally and I hate.
Yeah, very true.
What's yours, Gallagher?
Something that I hate.
Something that you hate seeing other people do. Something that you hate that you do. This is the part of the show where we give our 1 minute of hate.
Finally, a place, solitude. Something that I hate that I do a lot is like try and explain a lot. Like, I have an idea in my head, and then I will say way too much because I don't think my idea has come across. So I'll just babble on, and then by that point the joke is already lost, or like it doesn't make any sense. But I'm working on it. One thing that one thing I don't like, going off that commitment stuff. Not a big fan of people just like letting things go for the joke of it. The joke that people are improvising. Like, that's the joke. The joke, you and me, we're improvising on stage. We're saying we don't remember our names, and then we make it a big joke about it or something like that.
Yeah.
I'd rather double down on the mistakes or double down on what's happening right now. If I was in an audience, I would rather laugh at the characters that are being created or laugh at the comedy that's being created. I don't want to laugh at people telling me that they're improvising, because I'm not dumb. I know that they're improvising.
I can understand like the instinct where that comes from, but I bet you there's even more rich comedy to come from you answering the question of like, why in real life would you forget that person's name? rather than just being like, "Whoa, this is improv."
That's a fun idea. Like, if I ever forget someone's name, I'll try and back it up by saying, "Oh, it's your surname." Or like, even if I'm backing it up, or even better is like what you suggested, which is play on the mistake. That could be a fun game. Oh, I don't remember that guy's name because every time he comes up to me, I just think he's a different person. Oh, I think he has a different name every single time I meet him.
Or I'm full of myself. I don't care about other people's names.
Yeah, that's probably a better one. That was me over explaining my idea, and yours is just like,
I was just bringing my truth in, which is like, I don't care about other people.
Yeah. I think we got time for one more question. Have you got one more question, McInnes? Or I'll just ask mine.
I've got one.
Okay.
Right, Mark. What's the best show you've ever been in?
Is it weird that was the question that I was going to ask as well?
Best show, funniest show, most perfect stuff happened in it.
I'm so egotistical that I do regularly think about which are the best shows.
I like how you've been holding back, just in the hope that maybe they'll ask me what my best show is.
Yeah.
Now we get to it. Last question. We've got about 15 minutes. Go long.
Go Mark long.
I'm not going to say. I would say the most fun show I've done recently. And Waiting for Becky did a run at Scratchpad. And the middle one of those shows. What was middle? Last one? No. The last show, the last of the three we did.
Was it the Surgeon one?
It was the Surgeon one.
That was the last one, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and because I'm egotistical, I ended up being on stage the entire time, which might well be why I like it. But I think the whole show basically ended up being about me kind of being this very unusual surgeon. It felt slightly self-indulgent at my point at the end of it, but I can just remember it being very, very fun. We were all kind of kind of everything kind of seemed to work on it. It got like I initiated it, which, like I said earlier, I don't kind of initiate too many monikers. I think it ended up talking about a mistake. I think I misheard something Flex said initially.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I remember this. I remember actually asking you days after it, did you do this on purpose? Actually, maybe. I think Flex might. I'm trying to figure out who initiated properly. You initiated like the momentum of the scene, but I seem to remember something like, I think either you or Flex asked, could you pass the spatula?
Yeah.
No, I think it was Flex asked you for a spatula. Was that what it was? Basically, it was like a spatula, but you were a surgeon. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I particularly enjoyed just opening up with someone working on a dead body. One of us misheard the word spatula, and then it ended up me being a kind of super surgeon.
I think that's what it was. I think it was your initiation. This is what my question to you after the show was. It was like, did you intentionally choose to say spatula, or was it an accident? Because I was intrigued on whether you started with a really loaded premise for a monoscene, or whether it was just a total act. Because I could easily myself make that. I'd just start a monoscene like, I just got to start normal. Nurse, spatula, please. I think that's literally what the initiation was, and it killed. But I was like, I like that, but it's such a big loaded first line of monoscene.
Yeah. So yeah, go the mistake. But like, I can't remember that much more of the specifics on it. Yeah, I can just remember all the characters in there being fun. Everyone kind of get involved. think all the edits were good.
Fairly sure Rob played somebody who was the spouse of the dead body, who was like hopeful that their spouse was alive. Pretty sure Jack came in at the end and did something. I can't remember everything. It was a fun show.
That's pretty good. All right, I think we're going to call it there, lads. I think
Okay.
good.
One last brief question.
Okay.
What's the worst show you've ever done?
Oh.
You don't have to name any names.
No, you've got to name names.
What's just like... In fact, you could be as vague as you want, but like, what is a moment on stage where you've been like, this is hell?
Give us the date.
Give us the juicy deets.
I'm not sure in retrospect how bad it was, but like in terms of like being afterwards, I'd probably be one of like Becky's Got Food on Her Face's shows at the shit show. I think from memory, we did it like we were doing it when it was you were doing like the vote off at the end, and we were against Tadpole every time. We lost every time. And I can remember one shows afterwards. I think someone ended up like killing their wife with a hammer just because no one had anything. And,
Oh my god!
I've never really. Well, sorry, I've never had a bad show. But I've never like too like super despondent after a show. Like I'll generally always think, oh, I could have done better, but I'm not someone who's like too kind of down and depressed afterwards.
Oh, cool.
I relate to
All right.
that. I've never done a bad show.
I don't think any of us have ever done bad
I was
shows,
just
though.
curious. Like, I know other people have had that experience, so I'm just trying to learn more about it.
You hear like people talking about such a thing, but
So I'm a curious human being. I want to find out what it's like for the pros, the serfs, the people who do less than perfect improv.
They say the best improvisers are the ones that have had the most bad shows.
Who says that?
I'd like to think some really good players do.
I mean, I've only had perfect shows, and I'm the best improviser, so...
And with that, we'll call it there.
You guys got anything you want to plug? I mean, John, you should plug BLC. This is a BLC event.
Oh, of course, yeah. So this video is on the YouTube channel. Check out the rest of the videos and all the rest of the streams that we have on this channel. Bristol Longform Comedy is the Longform group in Bristol. We're currently in quarantine, but if hopefully when this is all finished, we'll be back with courses. Follow us on bristollongform.com. Anyone else?
I mean, I'll do my classic pitch. Jazz Police is a team that me and John are in. We're a Herald team. Like us on Facebook. We'll do a show after quarantine. It probably will include lots of references to quarantine. I also do shows on Tuesdays with my Glasgow team Soundtrack, and Billy Boy shows on Wednesdays with John and a guest. Maybe Mark, maybe not Mark.
Yeah, and have you got something to plug, Mark?
Once lockdown is over, Waiting for Becky will be back doing shows. If the show I described in detail for you whet your appetite, come and see more.
Right, and we just want to say a huge thank you to Mark Long for being our guest today. It was a pleasure having you and a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for not plugging saucers. That's the end of our show. Bye.